Welcome to the Elon Musk Signal Channel. Boeing's Starliner spacecraft has successfully launched on its third attempt to take astronauts into space for the first time. However, Boeing is facing a series of safety issues, but this time it surpasses ground operations. The company has shared that their CST-100 Starliner spacecraft continues to detect a fifth helium leak in its propulsion system. So how does this incident impact the Starliner's safe return journey to Earth and its crew? Let's find out in this video. After consecutive failed launch attempts, the Starliner spacecraft finally debuted last week. Approaching the space station, it missed its first docking opportunity on June 6 due to technical issues. After targeting another docking window, 5 of the spacecraft's thrusters failed during approach, forcing astronaut Butch Wilmore to manually control the spacecraft for a period before 4 of the thrusters were recovered and the capsule was returned to automatic mode. A week later, there was some panic after NASA accidentally broadcasted a simulation of astronauts being treated for decompression sickness, sparking speculation of an emergency situation in social media posts. A female voice instructed the crew members to get the commander back in his suit, check his vitals, and provide him with oxygen, then stating that his prognosis was tenuous. However, the ISS stated, "No emergency situation has occurred aboard the International Space Station." This soundbite was accidentally routed from an ongoing simulation where crew members and ground teams practice for various space emergencies and unrelated to any actual emergency. But now, Starliner faces an annoying issue as multiple helium leaks continue to appear. According to spacenews.com, NASA was aware of a leak at the time of Starliner's launch on June 5th, but decided with Boeing officials that it was a one-time issue and the mission would proceed. Steve Stitch, NASA's Commercial Crew Program Manager, said in a press conference before Starliner's launch, "We can handle this particular leak. The leak rate increases by 100 times. At the time of the spacecraft performing its mission well, hours after launch, controllers identified 2 more leaks. Now, with the 5th leak detected, NASA says they are assessing the impact of the leaks on the remainder of the mission, including departing the ISS and returning to Earth's atmosphere." Scheduling the Starliner's landing also has NASA officials in Houston scratching their heads as they consider multiple factors, resolving the issue on board, weather conditions, and the schedules of other astronauts on the International Space Station. It's not out of the realm of possibility that Starliner's return date will continue to fluctuate throughout the mission. However, the operations team's goal is for Starliner to undock from the ISS on June 18th. About 6 hours later, the spacecraft will land in the White Sands Missile Range Desert in New Mexico, Wilcox Playa in Arizona, or similar backup site, depending on weather conditions. Prior to this, NASA astronauts Butch Wilmore and Suni Williams continue testing Boeing's Starliner spacecraft as part of the first crewed flight. The testing is part of collecting data on the Starliner system for NASA's certification for routine crewed missions to the orbit complex. Wilmore and Williams, along with ground teams, are progressing through multiple flight objectives after Starliner arrived at the space station on June 6, including powering down the spacecraft to minimal power mode, where it will support operational missions while the crew works on the station, and then powering it back up again. Conducting tests of the safe haven to demonstrate that the spacecraft can support the crew with its own air and consumables in case of an emergency on the station. Conduct a study on habitability, along with astronauts Tracy Dyson and Matthew Dominic, to assess seating positions and other factors, such as airflow for a 4-person crew. Evaluate the spacesuit and seating, as well as check the service module's battery. Meanwhile, ground teams continue to evaluate and monitor Starliner's performance and plan to return to the mission no earlier than Tuesday, June 18th, while awaiting weather and spacecraft readiness. Starliner is cleared for crew emergency return from the space station, if necessary, per flight rules. While Starliner remains docked, ground teams are continuing to evaluate observations of propulsion system performance on the flight. Steve Stitch, manager of NASA's Commercial Crew Program, stated, "Butch and Suni are performing well on station. As ground teams continue to delve into the details of orbit performance, rendezvous, and Starliner docking, We hope to glean valuable lessons from this test flight, and I am extremely proud of how the NASA and Boeing teams are working together to ensure we can safely execute the return portion of the mission. One of the Starliner's reaction control system, RCS, thrusters, capable of generating about 85 pounds of thrust, is still not selected as teams continue evaluating its performance. Ground teams plan to fire all 28 RCS thrusters after undocking to collect additional data signatures on the service module thrusters before hardware usage. As part of normal operations, the service module separates from the crew module upon return, so NASA and Boeing will gather as much data as possible to support system evaluation. Teams are currently assessing any impacts, if any, 5 small leaks in the service module's helium manifold may have on the remainder of the mission. Engineers have evaluated the helium supply based on the current leak rate and determined that Starliner has sufficient fuel to support the return trip from the station. With just 7 hours of free flight time to execute the mission's conclusion, Starliner currently has enough remaining helium in its tanks to support 70 hours of free flight activity after undocking. While Starliner is docked, all contributing lines are closed off per normal mission operations to prevent helium loss from the tanks. Engineers are also evaluating a malfunctioning oxygen isolation valve in the service module. Ground teams successfully tested the propulsion system valve on Sunday. All oxidizer and other fuel valves in the service module are functioning normally. The suspect oxygen isolation valve was not cycled during a recent check. It will remain commanded closed for the remainder of the mission, while ground teams continue evaluating its data signatures. Crew module thruster valves, part of a redundant spacecraft control system in the final stage of flight before landing, have also successfully cycled, and all valves are operating as designed. Mission managers continue to work through the return plan, including assessments on the cause of the flight anomaly, fault tolerance, and minimizing potential activities for the remainder of the flight. NASA and Boeing will hold a remote press conference before departure to provide additional updates before Starliner departs the station. With launch and docking complete, the final dynamic phase of the mission remains at the end of the test flight, as Starliner will depart the orbiting laboratory and then adjust its orbit to depart from the space station. The spacecraft with Wilmore and Williams aboard will perform a deorbit burn before entering Earth's atmosphere and landing in the southwestern United States under parachutes and airbags, complete the flight. NASA appears confident at this time that despite the anomaly and what appears to be a larger issue with Boeing's propulsion system, that Starliner will have enough helium to safely complete the mission and return to Earth. Let's look forward to the next updates. Thank you for watching. Please leave your comments on this broadcast. Don't forget to like, share the video, and subscribe to the channel for continuous updates. Goodbye, and see you in the next video.